everyone. Welcome to the 422nd episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
And we have so much fun to talk about this week. We're going to be talking about the Google Pixel tablet, and is it right for your smart home? Roku has added some new gear and an updated home monitoring system. ADT has actually rolled out some of their new insurance products with State Farm. We'll see what those look like. Qualcomm has made a vehicle communications acquisition. We've got a security warning if you've got a certain type of router. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit more about my life with the Aquara FP2 sensors. We're also going to hear from our guest. This week's guest is Callista Redmond. She is the CEO of RISC-V International, and we're going to talk about what the heck RISC-V is doing, what it is, and why it's so important for the IoT. Woo-woo! Y'all, if you like chips, it's going to be a lot of fun. If you like dip, those chips aren't here. So we're also going to hear from our sponsor, Computex, and I'm just going to warn y'all, I have a little bit of a head cold, so I'm a little bit nasally, snotty? What am I, Kevin? Gross?
You're just a little under the weather.
Exactly. I saw the gross. Anyway, I'm going to try to move past all that. So first, let's hear from one of our sponsors. This week's sponsor is Blues Wireless. Blues provides cellular products that work so developers can build IoT products that change the world. Blues was founded by industry pioneer Ray Ozzie, and it provides the hardware and services to link virtually any device to a global cellular network. You can get started today with the Blues Note Card. This is the easiest way for developers to add secure, robust, and affordable prepaid cellular to their microcontroller. With just a few lines of code, anything you build can be cloud connected. Learn more at blues.io. Okay, well, big event on Wednesday was the Google I/O. There was the foldable phone. There was lots of other things. But here at the IoT podcast, what we care about is the smart home. And from the smart home perspective, there were two things that we care about. One, Google Home getting an update. And two, the Google Pixel tablet and dock. So when I saw this, I was so excited because, Google's been deprecating my favorite displays, smart displays, the Lenovo. I have two Lenovo displays, and I was like, ooh, could this tablet thing replace those? And the answer, Kevin, is?
It might. Just to level set people with some basics, we have not used the Pixel tablet nor the new charging dock yet. We were pre-briefed about it. So hopefully in the future we will give some hands-on experiences. The Pixel tablet costs $499. You can pre-order it starting Wednesday, the announcement day. You'll have it around June 20th. You also get with the tablet the charging speaker dock, which is very aptly named, as we will get into in a minute. To answer your question, Stacey, it could for certain people, but honestly, I don't see a very compelling reason, say, for me to buy this. And I don't really see a compelling reason for you to buy this unless you want a shareable Android tablet that you can put on a dock to recharge it and have as your everybody uses smart hub. Google did not do too much here when it comes to the smart home, in my opinion. There's no thread radio, for example, in the tablet. And there's no radios in the dock whatsoever. The dock literally charges and has speakers. When you put the tablet on the dock, you get a special home hub mode. But that's it. That really doesn't do much. The tablet is your basic Android tablet. It's new from Google with the G2 Tensor chip. It's got a nice high-res display, but nothing compelling that stands out, say, from a Samsung Galaxy Tab 8 right now. I feel like this is a missed opportunity because I expected more from a smart home perspective. Yes, it has the new Google Home interface. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But why not put some smarts in the charging dock? Why not put a thread radio in there? It's always plugged in the dock, so it makes for a thread border router if you put a thread radio and some smarts in there. Or even at least make it a Google Nest Wi-Fi Pro mesh access point. Nothing. It just is a place to charge your tablet, and it gives you a slightly different interface that anybody can use by voice when it's docked.
I wonder if they didn't put the thread radio in because you'd have to have it both in the tablet and in the dock.
No, you wouldn't. Not if you had Wi-Fi in both, which you do. You have Wi-Fi in the tablet.
Oh, so it would just be that extra hop. Okay.
Right. It would truly be like a bridge or a hub. It's not. It's a charging speaker dock.
Yeah.
And it's nice that they include it. I will say that. For $4.99, you're getting what it looks to be a good tablet on paper, and you are getting that dock. Google said during the briefing the main reason they made the dock was to address a problem they found with their research. And the research suggests tablets mostly stay at home. I generally agree with that. And tablets around the house typically are not charged when somebody wants to use them. Well, they are in my house, but that's just me, sample of one. So this is why the dock exists. And it feels like they created the dock to solve that problem and just said, let's slap a different interface on it so it's a nicer smart display. And they called it a day.
Yeah, that does seem to be what it is.
Sorry.
I agree with you on the missed opportunity because this is something, okay, we asked because I saw this and I thought, oh, this is a great smart home device or a potential smart home device. And they are very clear that they did not want to cannibalize their Nest display business for this. This is not designed to do that. And if you imagine a busier household, so Kevin and I both have relatively small households, and you've got, a tablet that is a communal tablet. You've probably got a kid that runs around, grabs it during the dinner hour, and they're like playing video games or watching YouTube on the tablet. I would still want something in my house to like show me the recipes or allow me to control the things. So I'd still want a smart display or something in my kitchen. So I guess in my house, this isn't a problem because there's only 3 of us and we actually have 3 tablets.
Well, I was just going to say, this was a problem years ago because tablets were new, they were expensive. You weren't going to likely buy one for everybody in the house on day one. But now we're like more than a decade into the true current tablet market. It was 2010, 2011 when the iPad came out. There were Android tablets just before that. Nowadays, I'm not saying that every household that has tablets has a tablet for everybody, but far more of them do now than they did 10 years ago. So I just don't feel that's a compelling argument for this product across the board.
Maybe it's for young children. Kevin's like, we don't have to find the audience.
No. It doesn't need to find an audience because if not, it'll be another thing that Google just pulls the plug on,
well,
And I will say they did guarantee 5 years of software security updates for this tablet, which is a big plus for them. So kudos on that. I don't want to poo-poo everything here. And I'm not saying nobody should buy this tablet. There are people that this makes sense for, but I think there's far fewer of those than Google thinks, but whatever. A lot of people that I know, they buy the Fire HD tablets or the Kindle Fire Kids tablets for their kids.
Oh, my mom loves the Fire HD tablets just in general.
Yeah. And so I don't know if I would want, if I had younger children and I wanted them to have a tablet, I don't think I'd want them to have my $500 tablet. That's also my smart home display. Because if they break that, I have no smart home display and I have no tablet and it's pricey. Give them their own $99 tablet.
I was thinking of it more as like their tablet, but yes. And did we mention that the dock is included with the tablet?
The dock is included.
And you could buy an extra one.
Yeah, I don't think officially they said a price. So I saw leaked pricing 2 weeks ago that may or may not be accurate of $129. I hope that's not the case because, again, for something that just charges and has, 4 times the base.
It has better speakers.
Okay, yeah, but...
Yeah, it doesn't even have microphones in there.
It's a dumb dock. I mean, I hate to say it, but on many levels, in my opinion, it is a dumb dock.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, if you think about like the cheapness of like those like Google Nest Minis, they're $50. Could you not have added a microphone? And then it could have been like a Google Nest Mini when it's alone, still doing like home commands.
Right. Just to clarify, this dock, if the tablet is not on there, it's useless. There's no functionality. You can't talk to Google on it. You can't do anything unless I misunderstood from the briefing or the presentations.
No, he said there were no mics. I mean, I don't know what else you would do then.
Well, yeah, then I reiterate, it's a dumb dock, and that is a missed opportunity.
But, we also want all of our things to be all of the things, but maybe not everyone does. I don't know. Okay. Google Home. They've also updated the Google Home app. They've actually been updating the Google Home app. They've been adding more capability for more devices and deeper device features and integrations. So like instead of just opening or closing your blinds, now you can open them part way, those kind of things. They've added some garage door features. With the update, we're finally going to get the ability to pull your Nest camera views into the Google Home app in a way that is going to be familiar for Nest app users. And this is great. They talked about this a while back, so I'm glad it's finally happening because the Google Home camera experience was bifurcated, right? It was only new cameras and it wasn't as good as the Nest app. And so people were like, this sucks. So they're finally bringing in that capability. They've also, again, they talked about this, I think all the way back at CES, maybe it was, but they're going to have 5 different screens based on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to control.
Right. Right. So down at the bottom, the tabs will read favorites, devices, automations, activity, and settings. It's a much clearer view of what you want to do. And you get into the context of what exactly you're trying to accomplish here much quicker. I'm just going to say this. I'm not trying to be funny because I pick on you for not using iOS, Stacey. They have literally replicated the Apple Home experience here. I say that's a good thing because it's a good experience. Like if I want to see all my devices, I can do that very easily. It was always a pain in Google Home. If I want to see just my favorites on all my devices, when I pull down from a notification center on iOS, there are my favorites, right? Automations. It's literally the same features and functionality in a Google presentation way.
So you want what I really want? Here, let's take a little journey into the future. Woo! Imagine that I've got a Google device in my room that's got some sort of UWB radio. I've got my Pixel or Samsung or some sort of handset with also a UWB radio. When I bring my handset into that room, Google's like, oh, Stacy's in the kitchen. I can tell. And then when I open the app,
it opens to the kitchen apps. Yes.
Now, I may not want that all the time, but just think for a second. God, won't that be beautiful?
Context. I love it.
Yeah. So I know that we're all excited about like ChatGPT and bringing better voice AI and smarter voice AI, and I am. But I think there's so much low-hanging fruit just on providing that level of context to eliminate unnecessary taps and frictions that, again, it's so subtle and people are not going to like love it. But that is the sort of stuff that Google's usually really good at. So I hope they do. All right.
Real quick, 2 quick things that are important to this. All of the new Google Home interface stuff is coming to all other, I think it's Pixel exclusive for now, but it's following up on other devices later. That's going to include tablets. So again, the Pixel tablet might have an exclusive interface for a little while, but not forever. Secondly, it was asked during the briefing about the scripting for your automations. And Google has said that they would have that, but at the time they said we have nothing to announce right now. So that's not coming along for the ride with Google I/O. I'm sure it'll follow soon, but if you're waiting for that, you're waiting a little longer.
Boo. Okay. Well, that's enough Google news. Let's talk about Roku. I don't know if y'all remember this, but remember like was it a year ago? It was a while back. Roku was like, hey, we're going to do the smart home stuff. And we're all like, what? Sure. And they were doing kind of rebranded Wise gear. Well, Roku has now added a home monitoring system, and it's a $99 system that gives you a keypad, a siren, and sensors. And that goes along with Roku already had smart home cameras and things like that. So this is a DIY thing. You can monitor it yourself, or you can subscribe to professional 24/7 monitoring. That's going to be available at Roku starting next week, and exclusively in Walmart stores. So you're going to get 2 entry sensors, a motion sensors, and then the hub with the siren, and then that keypad. The professional monitoring is going to be $9.99 a month or $99.99 a year. Yay. They also have a smart lighting strip and a solar panel for their outdoor camera. You'll also be able to see notifications on your TV if you've got a Roku player or your TV is powered by the Roku operating system. You'll also be able to access your camera and event history on your TV. And you can talk into your remote or your mobile Roku app to turn things on and off.
Yeah, it's, as you said, it's all rebranded Wise. This is all done in partnership. Everything is a Wise piece of hardware.
Okay, so Roku does say they did work with Wise as the collaborator, but they have unique features, including, quote, advanced security hardening measures and the Roku OS integration.
I was just going to say, yeah, you're turning your TV, your Roku-powered TV, into a somewhat smart display, at least from viewing cameras and such, and you're not doing that with Wise. So yeah, there's a benefit there.
This is on par. We really haven't talked about it on the show, which might be our problem, but Amazon is also pushing into this. They're pushing into Madam A, into the Fire TV. And there have been a couple stories talking about this. And again, I don't use my TV. I know I'm not like most Americans. I know a lot of people just have a TV in their house that is like kind of on all the time. We don't have that. And our TV is like far away downstairs. So I'm not the target user for this, but I don't know what you think about like all of this, like, oh, I could just talk to my TV and make it work and all of that. And that becoming the home.
For certain people, yes. Not for you, obviously, and probably not for me. Most of the content I consume is actually done on a 12.9-inch iPad Pro or my computer in my office. It's pretty rare I actually sit in front of our large TV. My wife sits in front of it a couple hours a night, but it's not on all the time, no. But again, for people who want the context of, hey, something's happening right now while I'm watching TV, yeah, I can see that as a good integration.
And it might be more important for things like seniors. Not that this is like maybe the best way to live, but a lot of people, especially if they're like in a nursing home or something like that, a lot of them just sit in front of a TV all day.
True.
So maybe that would be good for those kind of home health monitoring situations. I don't know. But I figured I should draw y'all's attention to it because it is actually a thing that is definitely happening. Also on the home security front, as it were, ADT has actually started launching their insurance partnership plans or packages that they created with State Farm. And back in 2022, State Farm announced a $1.2 billion equity investment in ADT. And this was a big deal. And they were like, yeah, we're going to combine insurance and security monitoring with like leak detection and things like that. And the first plans started coming out at the end of April in very limited markets. So this is not available in most places. There's some in Illinois,
Indiana, and Pennsylvania.
Yes. So that's first up. But the plans, I gotta say, I don't feel like they're that great. And the reason I say this is because what's happening is usually if you have any sort of monitored security system, your insurance provider will give you a discount on your premium. That discount for us was always around 5%. I don't know if you have a discount or anything like that.
I do not, actually.
Okay. So with the State Farm and ADT plans, you're going to get a 6% discount on your homeowner's premium from State Farm. And you're going to get some additional sensors and stuff from ADT. But what you're going to get is you either get the basic security system, which is an ADT panel, 2 door and window sensors, and the ADT control app. And you can also get the Smart Home Extras, which is a smoke detector, 3 to 7 water sensors, and additional, like a discount on ADT products. So when you add all of this together, what you're getting is basically security monitoring and leak monitoring. To get this discount, you have to link your ADT account to your security company, which now means your security company is going to basically say, oh, yes, everything is working as intended. Everything's connected. I don't know if State Farm is going to get, like, if you don't ever turn your alarm system off, are they going to be like, hey, you should turn that on? Probably. That's part of the proactive stuff.
Funny you should ask. It's not quite exactly what you're asking, but I was looking at the promotional terms. You have to allow ADT to share with State Farm telematics and specific data regarding system usage, excluding audio and video, for the purposes of the discounts and so on and so forth. So they'll know if you're not turning it on and whatnot. If you do revoke the data access, the monthly plan rate goes from $20 a month to $43 a month.
Yes, and you do have to sign a 3-year contract with ADT to do this. So you're getting in for 3 years, you're sharing your data. The big question for me is like, okay, like if you get a water leak, you're probably going to deal with it right away because nobody wants that. But like, let's say you forgot to turn your alarm on, your house gets burgled. Is State Farm going to look at that data and say, oh, well, you didn't turn your alarm on. That's on you, my friend, and not cover it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that they don't cover in their potential promotional terms.
I could not find that anywhere. So that's what we're going to ask ADT and State Farm, because that to me is the big question. And I mean, if you're State Farm, you totally have a vested interest. Like the reason they're doing this is because they want to create a more preventative service and helps cut their losses, right? Which makes sense.
Yes, yes.
But as a homeowner, if your like teenage kid leaves the house and forgets, you don't want to be on the hook if something happens. That's why you buy insurance.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And I don't think a 6% discount is enough to make up for that in my personal, or a 6% discount on premiums. So, okay, moving right along. Qualcomm has acquired a company called Autotalks. They are a fabless chip maker that builds SoCs, system on chips, for automotive safety. TechCrunch is reporting that Qualcomm is paying between $350 million and $400 million for the startup. So, yay. They've got sensors that are going to detect vehicles in your blind spots or whatever, oncoming vehicles. And the idea is to integrate their vehicle to X, so vehicle to everything communications tech, into its Snapdragon digital chassis portfolio. That's their Snapdragon for cars. And so we don't talk a lot about V2V, V2X because of a lot of reasons. One is it was supposed to be standardized, but then it didn't actually get like mandated federally as part of a full standard. It is still a standard, but it doesn't have to be put in cars. Eventually it might. I don't know what's been happening there, but this deal makes me feel like A, Qualcomm probably got a good price on this communication stuff, and B, Qualcomm is still this is still really important for them. So, and they're still a believer in the V2X standards. I don't have a lot more to say on that. Do you have anything else to say on that?
I kind of gave up on vehicle-to-vehicle communications when we talked about a couple of years back, Wi-Fi was going to solve the problem, and then standards came about, and then they weren't kind of required. And I'm like, no, they're just flailing now and haven't figured this out yet. So,
I mean, I think we thought we were going to have automotive, like self-driving cars by 2025. That is clearly not going to happen. So this is just taking longer. I think it's important to have a standardized way for vehicles to talk to each other on the road that is not based on who makes your car, and for signs and other road infrastructure to talk to cars. I don't know if it should be as like a cellular standard, if it should be like everybody has a Wi-Fi network, or maybe you use LoRaWAN. Like there's still a lot of options on the table. I just don't know.
Mm-hmm. It's too early yet for this industry, but it makes sense that Qualcomm is betting, on this technology and this company as it evolves.
Yeah. Qualcomm needs to own all the communication spectrum, or all the communication standards. Okay. Let's talk about a security thing. Kevin?
Yeah. We've talked for a couple of years about the Mirai IoT botnet, and we haven't talked about it lately because it's kind of...
It's old news.
Yeah, it's just been kind of diminished and handled. Except unless you have a TP-Link Archer AX21 router. The reason we're bringing this up is because that's not like some obscure router that only a few people buy in certain countries. That's a pretty well-known model of the TP-Link router. So this was disclosed, the Mirai botnet bug was disclosed in December 2022. TP-Link did issue a firmware update back in February, but it didn't fix the problem. So in March, they got a resolution in their update. So if you have this router, you want to make sure that you have the most recent firmware update available because it takes care of the Mirai botnet.
Woohoo! Again. All right. And then finally, I just wanted to close this out, I guess, with talk about the Aquara sensor, because I was dealing with the Aquara FP2 sensor. And I have now been testing it, using it in my house for like 2.5 weeks. And I tested both. Remember, we talked about it, I think, last week. And I was like, hey, you can use it as presence detection or you can use it as a fall detector. I've used it as both. The fall detection needs work. I'm just going to say it. I've had this thing running. When you use it for fall detection, you mount it on the ceiling against a wall. And this uses millimeter wave to detect what's happening. And the nice thing about that is it can actually get updates to make the algorithm better. If you want to use it for fall detection, you have to use it with the Aquara app. There is no other option, which means if you want to use fall detection and tie it to like something else happening, other than like a text notification, I think you can also do an email notification, you're going to need some other Aquara gear. So like if you wanted to tie it to a light, it needs to be an Aquara light or run through the Aquara hub rather. So fall detection, it detects falls all the time. It also detects people moving rapidly in and out of the space and tells me it's a fall. So it's a little hair trigger. I'm going to say not optimal for this use case unless you have. Part of my issue is I have a busy household, I have a small dog, and I have my fall detection set up in an area where we work out. So there is a lot of, it's not falling, it's controlled going down to the ground for a push-up, but it's rapid. So if you're doing burpees, it's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? So, if this is in your grandma's house and your grandma doesn't do burpees, this will probably be a little bit better, but it is still throwing off the occasional false alarm when a door opens really fast, or I don't have curtains, but it's also, they have a note in there, like if you have a lot of curtains, you may want to set your detection levels to like a little lower to be a little less high resolution. So that's that experience. So take of that what you will. I mean, I think it's still helpful, and I feel like it might be valuable just to try it if this is a use case that's really important to you and see how it works in your house. Maybe I should, Kevin, you've got one. Maybe you can try it and see how it works in your house.
Yeah, I could fall around the house like nobody's business. I will put it on a ceiling. I don't know which room yet, but I will test that out and see if it's any better.
I don't know if you have enough room to fake fall in your bathroom, but that's probably, that's a place where people fall a lot.
I could fall in the tub if you'd like, sure.
I mean, I really don't want you to hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself.
Well, no. I dealt with a motorcycle incident last weekend, though. If I can handle that falling on top of me, I can handle a fall in a bathtub.
Oh, maybe you should put it in your garage.
I should wear it on my motorcycle helmet.
So that's fall detection. And I bought this sensor for $82.99. Actually, I got a discount because I bought it right away when it was launched. And I bought it on Amazon, where it doesn't currently seem to be available, but we should see more coming. Now, let's talk about the fine-grained presence detection, because that's what we're in for. This is the second generation millimeter wave sensor from Aquara. The first one was terrible. A lot of the first generation millimeter wave sensors were real slow, high latency, because what's happening is there is literally a radio wave. It's going out and it's like, oh, something's in the way. And it takes that information, pulls it back, calculates it, and is like, oh, that's a person here. So if it's not happening locally and it goes to the cloud, then there's the cloud hop. There's potential for some latency. And the first generation sensors usually had quite a bit, like 5 seconds. This one, very little latency. I have not noticed a real big issue here. So it will do two kind of novel things. One, it detects multiple people in a room. So if someone's in a room and you enter it, things could happen or not happen, as the case may be. zones. Like you can set off little zones. So like if a person, like I set up a zone in my bedroom that was just my bed. So if someone was in bed and then the second person went to bed in the bedroom, it would turn the lights in the house off. And that was pretty cool because, I knew that everybody was in bed except for my kid. But for testing purposes, let's imagine this. And so, and the latency on that was great. This functionality was available in IFT and in Amazon. Google says they have it, but I could not find it anywhere in Google Home. And maybe this is a Google Home update that we'll see soon, but as of my testing of these last couple of weeks, it was not available. Kevin, you're going to have to test the HomeKit functionality because I cannot, but it's also in there. It also detects light sensing. So if you have you can create these fun things like if people are downstairs, if you detect movement and it is 200 lux in the room and it's not during these hours, turn on the lights. It confused the heck out of my child. My child was like, I don't know what's happening, but the lights keep going on downstairs. And part of that is because we live in Seattle and it's dim. So 200 lux is not that much. So all of that works. On the automation front, it probably worked about 90% of the time. And if that's enough for you, that's enough for you. 100% of the time, it could detect if someone was in a room. About 90% of the time, it could detect when someone was in a specialized detection area. So that is what I know so far from this particular sensor. Feel free to send me questions. Someone told me that it works through glass. I tried to get it to work through glass, and it did not detect me through my glass, but I do have double-paned fancy glass. In millimeter wave, this is a very short frequency. So it does attenuate, it breaks apart through glass and walls, but it also depends on how old your glass and walls are, I guess. Because some people said it worked through their glass, but I don't know if they've got double paned EV fancy glass. All right. That's that. Woof. That's a lot. I think it's time for the Internet of Things podcast hotline. What do you think, Kevin?
I would agree.
Okay. Guess what, y'all? It's time for the Internet of Things podcast hotline. This is the segment of the show where we hear from you. And this week it is sponsored by Particle, which makes an IoT dev kit for cellular, Wi-Fi, and other connectivity. So are you looking to fast track your IoT products? Particle is offering free dev kits to new users if you're located in the US or Canada. So you can visit particle.io to claim your free dev kit today. Oh, y'all, go do that. Why wouldn't you not do that? Let's talk about how to call us. You can reach us at 512-623-7424. And we are taking your questions about smart home stuff. You can ask us about weird connectivity stuff. I don't know. What else can they ask us, Kevin? Anything else?
Yeah, falling advice.
Dating advice.
Not motorcycle advice.
Yeah, don't ask Kevin about that. Okay. And if you do, you will be entered to win Nanoleaf Smart Lights, just a tiny triangle starter kit, but it's so fun. You'll enjoy it. So 512-623-7424. And this week's question is about IR blasters. It's from Keith. Let's hear it.
Hi, 16 Kevin. This is Keith in Glendale, Arizona. It's getting a little warm here now, and we got a little running around the house, feeling our remotes for the fans. So I was kind of curious. I've been looking at how to automate my fans and looking at items that can take the RF sensing and kind of learn the codes of it. Came across a device called Bond, which seemed to only do a few things, like control ceiling fans and fireplaces and some shades. I don't have either of the last two, but I do have a few fans I'd like it to control. Just curious what your experience with it, if you have any. It does seem a little limited. Is there any other options out there? It's around $100. And I was just curious about what you guys think about the product, if you know anything about it. I love the show. Keep up the good work. I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
So unfortunately, we're not able to offer a tested answer, meaning we don't have any IR blasters to test. We actually have devices that would work with IR blasters if we had them. So, for example, the SwitchBot Hub 2 that I reviewed, I believe, last week, actually does have an IR sensor in it. And I didn't even think about it until we got your question. I tried to use it with one of my fan remotes, but the fan remote does not use IR. It uses some other RF frequency. However, if your fans do use IR, the SwitchBot Hub 2 can learn from it, or you can choose it from a menu if it knows the brand and so on and so forth. There are some other options. Again, we are not able to test them, but Stacy, you tried the Homey Bridge a few months ago?
Yeah, this is a $70 device, and it does a lot of other stuff, which is possibly why it might be cool, kind of like your SwitchBot thing, right? And I programmed it to listen to my Somfy blinds. The thing to know with IR blasters and any of these hubs is they need to be in the room. So if you want your Homey or your SwitchBot hub, it needs to be in the room that you're trying to control your fan in.
Right. It's generally a line of sight. Yeah, I was just going to say, it's a line of sight type of communication, so...
And then I've actually tried the Bond, and I have friends who have the Bond and they love it. I know it's expensive and I don't know how many rooms you have this in. So it's not a bad option. It is a pricey option. And you can mesh some of these devices in with like a overarching smart home hub, like a Google Home or something like that to control everything all at once if you wanted to. But yeah, these are kind of your options. And I wish we could test it. I just don't have any IR fans.
Yeah, I mean, if it's traditional IR remote technology, these options should certainly work.
Hope that helps, Keith. Let us know what you chose, actually. And if you do, you'll be entered to win again. You should let us know next month. This way you could be 2 months. Woo! Because I'm very curious. And other people, if you have thoughts on your favorite IR things, let us know. I wish we could have tested this because it'd be so easy, but no. All right. Remember, if you would like to give us a call, it's 512-623-7424. And now, that concludes this segment of the show, but please stay tuned for our guest, Callista Redmond, who is the CEO of RISC-V International, where we talk about the RISC-V architecture and what it means for the IoT. But first, a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Computex. Hey everyone, we are taking a quick break from the Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. And this week's sponsor is Computex. And I have with me Tessa Lin, who is the Marketing and PR Manager at Computex. Tessa, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you, Stacy, for having me. Happy to be back.
Excellent. So what is the Computex Forum? Could you share some insights on what we can expect?
The Computex Forum will be held from May 30th to June 1st in Taipei, and it is a rare opportunity to explore the endless possibilities of metaverse, chips and semiconductors, as well as sustainable technology. Attendees can take part in exceptional exhibition experiences and enjoy lively speeches.
Okay, what can attendees expect from the Metaverse Forum?
Okay, the Metaverse Forum will spotlight the latest trends and cutting-edge technologies aimed to provide insights into metaverse innovations. Industry leaders will deliver their dynamic speeches and discussions, including NVIDIA, Siemens, and Taiwan Creative Content Agency.
Can you share more details about the Chips and Semiconductor Summit?
Yes, at the Chips and Semiconductor Summit, global leaders will share and discuss the latest advancements, emerging trends, and key feature technologies shaping the semiconductor industry. The players will provide in-depth analysis of the latest semiconductor applications. Executives from ARM, Ample Computing, Texas Instruments, Supermicro, Solidigm, NXP, and ST Microelectronics are some of our summit speakers.
And what topics will the sustainability event cover?
Our Sustainability Race to Zero event dives into the essentials of achieving sustainable net zero and showcase successful stories from various tech companies. Speakers from ASUS, Kaisha, Delta, and Intel will share their knowledge on the topic.
Sounds exciting. So where can our listeners go to find out more?
Oh, please visit www.computextaipei.com.tw/StacyOnIoT to learn more about Computex 2023. All sessions will be live streaming on our YouTube channel if you can't attend in person.
Thank you, Tessa, for helping our listeners learn more about Computex Forum 2023. The conference does sound like a unique opportunity to explore the latest and greatest in the metaverse, chips, and sustainability. And Tessa, any final thoughts?
I hope to see you all at Computex 2023 in Taipei or online.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Callista Redmond, who is the CEO of RISC-V International. Hello, Callista. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thanks. I'm so excited to be on your show.
I am really excited to have you. I have been a huge RISC-V proponent, nerd for now over a decade, because this was this is an instruction set that was created at Berkeley in 2012. And I should probably let you explain, because you're going to be so much better at it, what the heck y'all are doing with RISC-V. What is it and why does it matter? Just broadly.
So RISC-V is an instruction set architecture at the very base level. Software uses the instruction set architecture, also known as the ISA, to tell the hardware what to do. It's kind of the blueprint, the roadmap, the recipe to say, here's what we have.
Okay, so RISC-V is a standardized instruction set. Can you help us by explaining what the heck an instruction set is and why it matters that we have a standardized one?
So an instruction set really is the interface between software and hardware. It essentially tells the microprocessor what to do. And the importance of the ISA, regardless of whether you take a proprietary approach such as x86 or ARM, or in taking an approach with RISC-V, is that you need to build on a base that is frozen, that ISA is frozen for the test of time, such that the hardware you produce today will persist into the future, and you can achieve things like backward compatibility. Things that are important as software continues to move forward. You need to know that the underlying hardware is not going to change, or that your interface to that hardware is not going to change.
I have historically mentioned that RISC-V is open source because it was developed that way and that anyone can use it. But you've created this distinction here with a standard versus open source. So can you explain the value of anyone being able to use this and design their own chip on this instruction set as compared to maybe licensing something from ARM?
So a couple of things here that we can unpack. First, the delineation or distinction that RISC-V is a standard and not a open source software. So standards have been around for more than 100 years. I mean, they date back to the UK and early standards cultivation. And what standards allow the world to do is to plug and play in a way. Our most recent, or one of our recent examples around standards that has transformed technology is really, Ethernet. If you look at past networking in data centers, they were very proprietary approaches, and you basically, would sign up for a proprietary network that came along with servers and other things to build and compose your data center. That, became obsolete. That plug and play approach of a proprietary mechanism became obsolete when Ethernet, a global standard, came along. RISC-V is doing the same thing, only at in the semiconductor space. So we, as a global standard, are allowing for folks to compose or build their own implementation. And that's different than what you can do with a proprietary approach, say ARM or x86, because they don't allow that level of customization without a license or some level of freedom of action there that really isn't in their business model. So at a fundamental level, if you want to compose a chip with proprietary ISA, You can only work within the bounds of your license with them. And those licenses can take years to develop, millions of dollars, hundreds of engineers. And by the way, your base comes with around 1,500 lines or instructions. So you sort of have this large incrementally built ISO to work with that has proprietary restrictions on that freedom of design. RISC-V starts with a base of 47 instructions because we've designed it modularly from the start. You don't, have the burden of all those additional extensions that are really not useful for your implementation. So, RISC-V then allows you to compose, something and gives you that design freedom. And that design freedom doesn't mean it's free. It means that you can work with a, vastly growing and competitive landscape of IP providers or do your own, to compose a solution that's going after a workload challenge that you seek. Those workload challenges, by the way, can range from power to performance to other, space or other constraints that you're trying to overcome to really be competitive. At the end of the day, this is, unleashing and lowering the barrier to entry to the point now where there are more IP design houses on RISC-V than any other architecture in history.
Let's talk about some of those workloads, because I think that's one of the areas where I think RISC-V is almost unique for IoT, because an IoT workload can be everything from like a super intense gateway that is managing like an industrial process, right? So lots of low latency, a lot of data coming in, managing all that, to something like turning on and off a light bulb that's connected to the internet. So these are vastly different applications, power needs, security needs. So if someone wants to develop something along these lines using RISC-V, do they need to be a chip designer? Like that feels like a heavy lift for a lot of companies.
Well, that's exactly it. As we continue to build our ecosystem, we have stakeholders around all pieces of this, ranging from independent engineers and folks working in foundries to IP houses to end users. And those users may specify, here's the challenge that we see in front of us. Perhaps it's an existing workload or a workload that is just coming into fruition. And those opportunities are growing exponentially. So perhaps they already are working with one of the other architectures. But the challenge that they're seeing, they can't quite meet that with that other architecture because of the constraints around it. And those constraints could be technical or they could be business. And that's where they would turn to RISC-V and say like, well, gosh, I want to take a RISC-V path on this. I don't have that, design engineer in-house. Who can I go work with? Who can I collaborate with? And openness breeds innovation, breeds differentiation and opportunity. And so you see a lot of folks coming together and collaborating to overcome those challenges and beginning to win across workloads. You talk about IoT and the explosion of opportunities there that really didn't exist 5-10 years ago. And now as that, explosion in opportunity continues, so does the appetite for that, custom design or custom implementations.
And I know that I've spoken with a few startups who are building chips aimed at the IoT. And of course, the IoT is huge. So they're in particular looking at low power devices for wearables and that sort of thing. Do you have examples of companies that are building new silicon aimed at the IoT? And are there particular industries you're seeing a focus on?
So I think the early adoption and momentum that we're seeing with RISC-V has really been in the embedded and IoT type spaces, ranging from hearables that you see from Dolphin Design, collaborating with Sonical, or kind of leveraging entire SoC portfolios, from companies like Microchip on their PolarFire portfolio, or Sci-Fi, who's been, one of the hottest startups in the RISC-V community on wearables, smart home, VR, industrial IoT, and more. Google has made some big announcements around their Android open source project and the porting of that to RISC-V, which was, again, a collaboration, together with Alibaba, that kind of brought that forward. So we're seeing advances going on across the IoT space, as well as extending into telecom, and by the way, all the way up to high performance and data center implementations.
Let's talk about how customers are likely to encounter this. So there are companies like Renesas or Microchip that have actually built RISC-V microcontrollers. And if I am a company that wants to build out something on RISC-V, I can choose that and build that out. There are also dedicated startups who are building chips to embed in specific devices. There are companies like making hearables that are designing their own RISC-V chips to improve the performance of their products. So how do you think RISC-V is going to ultimately change the nature of the products that we see, the technology products that we see in the market?
RISC-V has really opened the aperture to multiple architectures running in the same devices. So you look at phones, right? Andy's technology has really kind of moved the ball forward in incorporating RISC-V for Wi-Fi or Bluetooth implementation in phones. In fact, that's been a huge advance. Qualcomm, they're using RISC-V cores for mobile, automotive, extended reality, and as well as IoT solutions. And they've already shipped 650 million RISC-V cores. So you start to see RISC-V coming alongside other architectures for capabilities that were easier or more streamlined to do with that composable design approach. So you're starting to see opportunity as well as adoption from the smallest startups engaging with those large multinationals, as well as the multinationals themselves making a deeper investment.
Let's move to kind of this different area, which is when I think about us adding connectivity and computing, or both, to just about everything out there, to me it opens up this new opportunity for lots of monolithic workloads and applications. So it's possible if you've got a chip in every street lamp out there that is designed to do dynamic lighting, for example, that is something, there will be so many chips sold for that it's possible to optimize something for just that application, right? In ways that we haven't had except for like PCs, servers, and smartphones. And I'm curious if that represents a new opportunity for silicon companies or startups trying with a new idea, and where the fact that RISC-V is open and standardized might play a part in that.
It absolutely plays a part. I mean, you've pointed to a couple of variables already. First, on everyone's mind is going to be security. Please don't turn off the lights for this city, right? And security starts with transparency. Transparency comes when you can see everything through, all the way through the ISA in that design. So security and transparency comes at the front of the mind in making those types of decisions. Next is, are you able to compose a design that is power efficient, right? Are you able to reduce code size? Well, by design, RISC-V is the one that has that modular capability of only bringing along what is necessary for your workload. That allows you to begin to get to volume with, power efficiency. And there are many, examples out there already where RISC-V has achieved fitting within those envelopes, whether it's price, power, performance, and other variables that folks are hit with as their design challenge. So those are the areas that really make RISC-V a optimal kind of direction to take those next designs to.
So this is why Google's work to bring Android to RISC-V is so important. It's because you can't just have silicon. You have to have existing software that works on top of it, unless you want to just build a bunch of custom solutions. So how is that going? What else have you got running on the RISC-V architecture?
So we have hundreds of software packages and libraries and other tools and resources that are filling out our ecosystem today. And, it's on an accelerated roadmap. I would say within the next 3 years, we will be at parity or stronger than other architectures. This is something, by the way, that's taken decades for other architectures to get to. But because of the business value and because of the exploding opportunity that the ecosystem is seeing on RISC-V and the portability and easing that on-ramp, right, that's becoming more and more tangible and attractive to that software ecosystem.
Okay, so RISC-V isn't open source. Exactly. It's open, but it's a standard. So are there issues around fragmentation that people should worry about?
Oftentimes, folks will think, well, if anyone anywhere can do whatever they want, does that lead to fragmentation? I mean, fragmentation meaning, we've got driving wheels on different sides of the car, we have different plug adapters, and while those are standards, people still went off and did their own thing, and now the rest of the world has to sort of contend with multiple ways of doing the same thing. Fragmentation today, really has a lot of forces working against it, against taking your own path off into the weeds. While you may achieve a short-term gain by filling out something all by yourself in a proprietary manner to layer on top of our global open standard, the long-term gain of that means that you would have to go support your own independent entire ecosystem. And no one wants to do that. No one can afford that. No nation, no company, no one can afford basically their own software stack. So as we talked about the importance of software, ensuring that, we all are working from that same set of building blocks and are able to upstream software that will work across any RISC-V implementation. We're working very hard to assemble, compositions of the base ISA plus extensions called profiles, and making sure that we have those in place to dissuade anyone from, going off and doing their own implementation on something that really, let's all use the same base building blocks and then go add your distinct value on top of that.
Excellent. All right. Well, Calista, thank you so much for coming on the show this week. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Stacey. It's been great to spend some time together. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks everyone for listening to this week's Internet of Things podcast. I really appreciate it, as does Kevin. And if you want to find out more information on the Internet of Things, you can find it at my free weekly newsletter that comes out every Friday. You can sign up for that at www.staceyoniot.com/newsletter. Or you can just visit the website for all of those stories published a little bit later. Thanks for listening and have a great week.